Welcome to Fintech Chatting, presented by Tier 1 People, leaders in fintech executive search. Follow us on your favorite podcast player or Fintech Chatter TV on YouTube.
Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of Fintech Chatter, the podcast for everything fintech down under. First of all, I just want to thank you. Tuesday, the 31st of October, marks the 4-year anniversary of the very first Fintech Chatter recording. It's been a crazy 4 years with global pandemics, market crashes, and market booms. Thanks for your support through all the ups and downs of this past 4 years, and here's to another exciting 4 years ahead. Now on to today's show. You might recall that back in 2022, I went on a mission to showcase some of Australia's up-and-coming fintech startups. One of those companies is Datamesh Group, a global payment solution built in the cloud and harnessing AI. Earlier this year, Datamesh announced a 30 million Series A with NAB and ANZ venture arm 1835i. 12 months on from his debut appearance, I caught up with CEO and founder Mark Nagy to talk about how he managed to raise such a big round and what the future holds for Datamesh as we head into 2024. So Mark, amazing news earlier this year, 30 million Series A raise, really difficult period. How on earth did you do it?
Yeah, look, we are probably still a little bit sort of in shock, but, I guess it's probably having the right product with the right story and the right planning and an opportunity out there. And the fact that we've got strong revenue growth and with proof of execution. I think the money's still there for the right stories, Dexter. And, we've got a very strong plan for future growth and international expansion. So, and provided the story that you can is testable and provable, the money's there. The money hasn't gone away. It's just what the money is being smarter, and it's just not chasing anything that moves at the moment. So I think that's how we've done it. And, there's an amazing team of people at Datamesh. So, we have M&A experts in here. We also have probably what has also helped is we've got some pretty good customers who are also investors. And, usually people go, well, hang on, if they're in, there must be something to this story. So that doesn't hurt either.
With that, you kind of touched on the product and getting that right. We keep hearing this term, path to profitability. How important was that to be able to demonstrate to investors, hey, this is the path that we're on?
Yeah, shockingly not overly at the time. And I say that in that context because we were at the sort of tail end or probably in the early stages of things going to sand in terms of, the global economic markets. All the IPOs were stopping and fundraising was falling off. But people were trading on contracts. And so you were raising capital against contracts. We were very fortunate in that not only do we have contracts with measurable volumes in really amazing companies as our customers or our partners, but we also had evidence of product being used and revenue growth underway. You could actually map out, you could see the pathway to revenue. So it wasn't really hard to tell the story. As a result of that probably worked in our favour. I've got to tell you, I wouldn't like to have been doing it 6 months later, because we were being quite honest with you, we were very committed to a product roadmap. And so we needed that funding, and which is why we decided to, instead of taking 15, we took 30, because we knew we could double down and get a lot more stuff done in a shorter time frame. But now that we've got that product set, we feel like we're in good shape, and they're actually now delivering even stronger revenues. But the final part of your question is to be cash flow pathway to revenue, but then to also demonstrate cash flow positive is now more important than ever. Like, again, contracts were sort of, the holy grail before. You must be able to demonstrate not only profitability, but also cost control. No more vanity projects.
One of the challenges I think that we have in fintech or any tech startup is that part of the attraction to investors has been that you're going to be the next big thing. And I think kind of one of the big shifts that we've seen is that, kind of the one day has become 2 day, right? Like we're now at the day where you've got to deliver. How do you get that balance then between being innovative and doing something new and fresh, where there's something that's going to attract investors, but also something that's practical and pragmatic enough that you can actually fix problems that are real problems today?
Yeah, so look, there's definitely in the last 10 years, and certainly even in the last 24 months, and we've seen a really big move now. Once upon a time, nothing could go in the cloud. Everyone was nervous about it. And, like you've got the big cloud providers have been doubling down really heavily on their infrastructure. Organisations like banks and, government departments, that once would have never contemplated utilising the cloud for hosting, have now recognised not only the value of it, but the fact that it actually provides stability and reliability. I think that's been one of the biggest, certainly the biggest things that I've witnessed that's presented opportunity to large organisations who are typically my customers or our customers at Datamesh. But that trend and the improvement of communications that go along with it that have really, for example, we witnessed the NBN rollout in Australia, how that at the time when that was proposed was going to be revolutionary. Halfway through, we realised, some of us had already realised this, but we'd realised that we shouldn't be laying fibre optic cables, because the cellular communications have improved to the point where things like 5G and that. So part of the dark art of this is to be not only looking at where the opportunities to these evolutionary changes present better customer experiences, whether it's my customer or my customer's customer or their customer. If so long as there is an improved experience attached to the change, it'll 100% get up. In my opinion, it'll 100% get up. So it's all about customer experience. It's all about unique diversification of those experiences that are being delivered. And instead of the good old one size fits all approach, now organisations are saying, look, if I want to capture that all important in my world, say for example retail spend, I need to be able to offer a better experience to my customer. And in order to do that, I need to be in greater control of the solutions that I deliver. And we're seeing a greater appetite for that. And the final part of it is that people are just not like accepting the old adage, well, that's the one size fits all and you either take it or leave it. And this is why I think the disruptors are doing so many great things in the marketplace today, is they're actually informing the greater population that there is alternatives and that you should be willing to ask for them and be brave enough to try them.
What do you see as being the kind of the mood around these emerging technologies, and do you think that they'll kind of end up being like an NBN, where it's like the technology's evolved now, that's actually redundant, and we're moving into a different phase?
So there's a whole lot of answers there. I'll try and keep it simple. In my opinion, you have to always be saying to yourself, I've got a technology here. Will the consumer adopt it? So when we talk about things like payment transfers, Pay2 is a great one, for example, where I pay you, I just enter your mobile number through that's a really nice tool. It is because it's convenient, it's fast, it's useful, it's inexpensive, and you get real-time payments. So that's an example of something that really has found its way into the scene, and consumers are starting to adopt it now, and it's great, and it's actually almost becoming weird when you don't use it. But there are also other things out there at the moment that are really highly efficient. So again, in my world, for example, contactless payments, tap and go. Okay, if you want to change that, if you think about how sort of digital payments or NBN-based payments would be run in that space, the consumer doesn't really see what's there as broken. And so to convince the consumer that they have to use something other than what they do today, I don't think that's going to have a very high chance of success. And it comes back to the point I was making earlier, that everything has got to pass that infamous pub test. If the consumer will use it and adopt it, and you're, as a developer or a creator, not building things that you think are a great idea, which is often the downfall of the innovation side of things. But if you, as an innovator, can say, look, I've got a better way of doing something, And you won't notice the difference, but all you'll get out of it is a much better experience that could be cheaper, faster, more rewarding, then it's going to have a greater chance of success. So a lot of these things that we just talked about now, Dexter, they're things that sit in the background as providers to my industry, for example, are going to be the benefactors of, but the consumer has always got to be first and foremost the person that you contemplate when you're developing something.
I wanted to talk a little bit about what this kind of 30 million raise has meant for the business and how that's kind of helped you kick on. As we've talked about, a different landscape now. It very much is kind of what I'd describe, Mark, as a world of haves and have-nots. And I think for those who have been able to secure funding or in a solid position, it seems like it's potentially a really good opportunity out there to grow the business. How are you seeing things?
Yeah, so look, it's definitely, like as I said, we wanted to raise 15. We finished up taking 30. That afforded us the opportunity to finish off some product development that we had and really kick off our global expansion. From a Datamesh perspective, we recognised that our opportunity was founded in Australia but executed globally. And proof of that was the contract that we secured with Deutsche Bank. So for us, we know that we're servicing, it comes back to stuff we were talking about earlier, that there's a global problem that we see an opportunity to solve in terms of partnering with banks and acquirers around the world to be able to help them provide a better solution and capability and technology to their work with us. We're good with that. But what it has also done is set us up, Dexter, to be able to go and put in place the relationships that we need that you'll start to hear more about in 2024 of some really cool stuff that we've done. And we know that we're globally relevant. This has turbocharged our ability to get to that quickly.
And you mentioned there Deutsche Bank. I mean, as a founder who's based in Oz, how difficult is it to get out there and start to win these global clients? What are some of the challenges and I guess some of the kind of perceptions that they have of an Oz-based fintech business that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is my third business that I started, and it's only really in this business because of the end of town we play in that I've really understood that as an Australian company, it's incredibly challenging to actually get yourself on the global platform and the global stage. And in fact, just a little sidebar, a couple of months back, I was up in the US. I might head up there again this weekend, but I was up there in the US and I met a number of investment firms that asked to meet us. And they were very clear that the Australian fintechs at the moment are not highly popular, which is, to me was a little bit shocking. That's because through those changes in the marketplace and the environmental changes around the global economy and so on, that a lot of Australian fintechs that have raised money have actually now found themselves in the hurt locker. So we have an equal challenge as founders to be able to prove that what we're doing is resilient and globally scalable, because to be quite honest with you, I think we make up 1% of the global GDP. So the great challenge in answering your question is, first of all, goes back to, again, you must have the right solution. You must be well prepared and you must be able to demonstrate that you have dealt with the issue of execution risk. It's the number one thing that I heard constantly for the last 18 months is, how do I know as an Australian company at an enterprise level that you purport to be, that you can actually deliver and execute and you're not going to bring my business down? Because you're going to sit between me and my customer and you need to get that right. So the answer to that is you've got to have the right partnerships. So you've got to be working with the big consulting firms, which obviously are expensive, but that pays dividends. You've got to make sure your financials are in order. You've got to make sure that you've got the relationships in place. And the other little tip that I'd give anyone listening to this is, don't go for the biggest customer in the biggest end of town right away. It's for two reasons. First of all, chances of success are negligible and to zero. The money that you're going to earn from that is going to cost you, is going to be less than what it's going to cost you to do the deal. It's going to take longer to do it. And I have a favourite saying that everyone loves to be first to go second. So if you can find a small partner that's agile and willing to move with you, and actually be that primary that goes, look, I know you're going to make some mistakes and you're going to get things wrong. Go with me. I'll go with you. We'll do the first one as kind of like a friendly relationship. Then you can point to that, the other guys. And I think that was one of the things we did well. to actually demonstrate that we can execute. So when we get an organisation like Deutsche that comes on board, they already have prima facie evidence that we can actually do the job. And then the final bit, obviously, is having the right Rolodex, being able to get to people that are the decision makers. Do not get caught up with middle management, because you'll get the rope around the axle and that'll go nowhere. You have to be brave, Dexter. It's about being brave.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting point that you make, because I think, when I look at just my observations of hiring for enterprise sales and sales directors and managing directors to come in and grow these businesses, one of the qualities that I've been looking for, certainly over this last 5-6 years, Mark, is first of all, I guess, that sense to know that this isn't an opportunity. It's probably more critical than being able to close a deal in many instances for a smaller business, that you need every bit of oxygen that you can get. But I think the other thing is just the complexity of making these things happen. It's not just about having the one name in the organization. It's all of the others that you've got to engage and take on the journey, and that just takes time. It takes energy. It takes being able to influence. Takes understanding politics. It's really complex for particularly if you're a green founder that's new to all this. You're just going to get lost.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And look, I have another adage that I try to live by. It doesn't always work, but I try my very best. And it goes back to planning again. If you're an impatient person, which I am, you will make mistakes. So you need to be assuming that once, this is really important in the sales cycle you're just talking about, once you've established a relationship with an organisation and you've established a rapport whereby they are genuinely interested in being a customer or a partner, you have to assume from that moment onwards they are actually going to be looking for reasons why not to do it. Okay? So and I know that sounds rather Machiavellian, but the point I'm trying to make is they're looking for validation along the way that they can execute without risk. And everything then moves from, it's kind of like, the honeymoon stage until now we're off to the church to get married. In that cycle, that is going to be the difference between whether you actually secure the deal or not. And I see so many organisations that get right up to the 1 yard line and they fall over because they haven't done their prep, they haven't done their planning, they haven't researched. I mean, organisations love, apart from when they get to that point, they want to know that you've researched that relationship within an inch of its life. They want you to be able to say to them, look, I understand that you're doing one of these, and those little things often considered offensive are actually not. They're proof points that you've done your homework, And then the other thing is always be willing to be a partner. They're not a customer and you're not a vendor. Be a partner. If you always describe yourself as a partner, again, you'll demonstrate that you're actually in this together. And then I love skin in the game deals. I like money up front because that's always a proof point that you're serious. Money changing hands is always a great sign of commitment. But then demonstrating that you're willing to have a bit of skin in the game, but at the end of it, if you deliver, you want lots of upside. So risk.
You talked about some of the challenges that Aussie fintechs are facing when they're looking to go global, Mark. What are some of the opportunities that you've noticed that perhaps aren't really being exploited?
Yeah, so it really comes down to if you were to draw sort of Maslow's hierarchy of our industry, for example, you start with the consumer at the top, and that consumer globally is pretty well the same. They either buy face to face or they buy online. And then it just sort of trickles down from there. You're dealing with a retailer that deals with, all sorts of service organisations. At the end of the exercise, there's some form of acquirer. Now, again, I'm talking very specifically about my thing. So you must always design whatever you're doing from the top down and from the bottom up. Okay, you need to run those exercises. I had great opportunity to do some work with IDEO several years ago. And they taught me a very valuable lesson. And they were the inventors of human-centric design modelling, which essentially you must put yourself genuinely in the consumer's shoes and ask the question. And look, I don't deal with consumers at all. But 100% of what we do is designed for the consumer. Okay, so the critical thing and we have it doubly hard as Australian companies. And, I don't want to sound like, there's any sort of syndrome here, but we have to be just that much better because if we want to play on the global stage, and some organisations are quite happy just to remain domestic, but, Australian companies have got lots of opportunities. So again, when I come to your question, the biggest problem, and certainly in my space, is that the architecture that most of the 30,000 plus acquirers around the world are running hasn't kept up with the demand of the consumer or the retailer and the divergence between industry groups. So, for example, in my world, again, the experience that you would see, say, in a quick service food restaurant is very different to what you'd see in a service station. And yet those two parties now can coexist together under the one roof. So how do you make that functional? How do you make that a single source of truth for the retailer so they get to know their customer better, so they can deliver a better example? Financial institutions that provide technology to process payments, where they've typically also been the tech partner, that has changed, and that's changed rapidly. So the opportunity exists where how do you partner with acquirers, not compete with them, is my view. How do you actually, and that's the pathway we took. So a lot of organisations that are disruptors today are going to find it very hard to backtrack from being competitors to banks and acquirers. Okay, we fundamentally recognise right at the very beginning you have to pick a team, and we've picked bank and acquirer team and schemes, and we've said we don't want to compete with you guys. We want to partner with you because, quite frankly, you own the market share. So I'm giving you a little bit of my secret sauce here, but
yeah, well, you actually done a beautiful job of running my sequence of questions, because what I wanted to kind of ask you next was, if you were to start again, what would be the approach that you'd take? And bearing in mind that we're in a very different kind of funding environment now, we've seen some of these models. If you talked about the disruptor, we're not going to see another neobank getting off the ground. We're not going to see another Uber get off the ground. I think those kind of days of regulatory arbitrage, as somebody put it to me a few weeks back, I think now that opportunity is gone. What do you see if you were a founder that was having to bootstrap? What do you think would be the approach that you would take?
I think it's critically important that first step you must plan what it is you're trying to do in the market and test it within an inch of its life on paper. The second thing is you need to bring a partner business along that will be a key stakeholder for your future. Again, it goes back to my point earlier. I think, the magic of what we did at Datamesh is that we got, the OTR group to actually be the guinea pigs. And, we'll be eternally grateful for them signing on to be our partner, to actually say, yeah, look, we're willing to develop with you. We know you're going to screw things up. And so my advice to any founder is don't just build the solution you think is right, but actually engage with some organisation that is effectively going to be your customer, but is one that's also willing to be with you on the journey, good, bad, and indifferent. Like let them be your test guinea pig, if you will. And that's why I say to you, don't go too big, but also don't go too small. Too small doesn't have relevancy, and that's again why I think part of I do say that the elegance of what we were able to do at Datamesh was and I'll be eternally grateful for it, is to get the OTR guys to come on board with us and be our launch customer, and so use that philosophy to go, because I see so many great ideas that just stall because the bit they're missing is not just the go to market, but actually the launch customer.
Yeah. You touched on next year and some big news. Anything that you can share with us?
Look, I'd probably have to say not only that we are about, probably the closest I can get to it is that we're about to execute a very significant global contract, which I think, that sets us up for the future. Dexter, if you want to talk to me a little bit in the new year about it earlier, I'm happy to give you a bit of a scoop. I think for us, it's really super exciting. The genesis of the company was to start building stuff that we really didn't want to do, but we had to get started. We've now really finished off our product set, and we're tailored ourselves to become a software as a service company. That means we're getting out of hardware, which means we don't have to be on the tools as much. We can be more of a software company. But it also means we're now pivoting to an organisation where we're distributing through partnerships, global organisations, so that probably give you a half a clue as to where we're going. And so the long and the short of it is, to be the front end as a branded product under one of those global brand names that you would know, and where they're the reseller of our product. I think that's very exciting. So sorry, I'm probably not being definitive, but
it's all right. It's I don't want to scup out any deals, and as you said, these things have a habit of falling over at the final yard, so I don't want to be the one that facilitates it. Mark, it's been fantastic to reconnect and hear about the progress that you've made. We get some amazing people listening to this podcast. Could be clients, could be talent. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I think just come through our LinkedIn profile, the company LinkedIn profile. I know that sounds probably a little bit vanilla, but it's becoming quite a popular source for people to communicate with Datamesh at the moment. I mean, because we're a B2B company, we don't really have this amazing website. That's not how we work. So if they would like to come to us, if they could reach out through LinkedIn, we'd be glad to hear. And we are hiring at the moment, so again, if there's people looking to be part of something pretty special, we are looking to hire some people, mainly in project management and technical space, because we are growing rather quickly.
Well, as always, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. If you're coming back, thanks so much for your support. And if you're new to the show, make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast player and leave us a review. It really helps me promote guests like Mark and great Aussie fintechs like Datamesh. Until the next episode, keep well. Fintech Chatter is produced by Tier 1 people, leaders in fintech executive search. We'll find world-class leadership talent to build world-class fintech ventures, and you can find us at tier1people.com.